You are watching another episode of Shane Solomon Meets, brought to you by the Cornwall Channel. I'm your host, Shane Solomon, and today I'm meeting the jazz genius that is Simon Latarche. So before I get too much into this interview, I want to give you 20 to 30 seconds of Simon in all his splendour.
But it's not always you. That's not good. But I want it to be.
So I have the jazz god from Cornwall with me today. Simon, this is like...
Steady.
This is fantastic for me. I'm so glad you've taken time to come up. So much to talk about.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really kind.
Well, I don't know where to start, but I want to say jazz. It's something that I do appreciate. I'm not a huge jazz fan, I'll be honest, but it's something I appreciate. What is the jazz scene like in Cornwall?
Pretty good, really. It's interesting because I've played in a number of different places in Cornwall, but I guess the main jazz club would be the St Ives Jazz Club at the Western Hotel, which is since lockdown. I don't know that they've done quite so many gigs under the banner of St Ives Jazz Club, but they do play regular gigs there. My friend Tom Quirk books in every Tuesday evening. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's under the name of the hotel, and other nights when they get artists from further afield, they're under the banner of the St Ives Jazz Club, and they get top players who are on tour over the country will come and play at St Ives. So yeah, and actually that is, well, they would banner themselves as Cornwall's premier jazz club, and I guess I would agree with them. I mean, there are other places, Calstock Arts. In fact, they had a jazz gig. I think indeed they've got a jazz gig as we're speaking on the 13th of January. This evening there is a jazz gig there. The reason I know that is because I was advertising it on my show, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. But also there's the Bude Jazz Club as well, which tends to focus more for those people who might be more interested in traditional jazz and New Orleans jazz. But there's a big scene up in Bude as well.
So I know a very good friend of mine, Ruth Sterling, is really into jazz, and she rang me up and told me about the St Ives Jazz Club, which, by the way, Ruth, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry I've not done nothing about it at the moment. Ruth, you know how busy I am. I know how busy you are, my darling, but I will. But, perhaps this could be the first step towards that. I just want to say before I go any further, there's so much to talk about, so I have to kind of keep it concise. But the video clip that I played featured Lucy. So you wrote the music.
Yes.
Lucy wrote the words. Yes. So it was a collaboration between the two of you.
Yeah.
Beautiful sounding. How long did that take to do? And of course, it was done in Cube Studios with Gareth Young.
Yes.
You're not going to get much better. How long does it take to put something like that together?
I couldn't remember now, but I would say a couple of months to actually write the tune, an afternoon maybe. Okay. But to get the arrangement, to get the musicians who are Keith Marshall on the drums and Sam Norman on the double bass, as well as Lucy, and it took time just to get the arrangement so that it was very tight. So you don't want to go to a recording studio and spend hours rehearsing.
Not at all.
That's
especially not Cube.
No, top I wasn't going to say that, but yeah.
I will, because it's great.
Yeah, but that's it. So we were able to go there and play it straight away. But it was all the rehearsing was done at my house actually, and the arranging of, and we might get halfway through and think that bit could do with perhaps having another chorus or another verse, or let's leave that little bit of solo in there, or whatever. And of course, we tried to get the piece to be the concise length. We didn't want it to ramble on till 6 or 7 minutes. If we were playing live, that's different. But when you're doing something like a YouTube clip or a YouTube video, or if you're doing something like a thing to go on Spotify, then you don't want it to be on for too long.
Sure. And of course, that clip that I did play is available on YouTube, so you can check that out yourself and play it in its entirety, which is superb. Now, I want to go back to the beginning of how we got introduced, and that was through a wonderful chap called Mark Huckle.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, okay. Mark. Yeah.
And at the time, I believe Cornwall Channel was on Sky TV.
Yes, it was. And my mum used to watch in London.
That's amazing. Again, I was saying to you in the green room, I don't regret a moment of doing that.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe one day it will return. But Mark introduced us, and I was looking for some music in one of our programs. You kindly let us use one of your videos at the time.
Yeah.
So let's go to the teaching. Let's find out about Simon Latarche.
Oh, my word, it's so long ago.
So you taught a lot of people over how many years?
34 years.
In music.
In music at Truro School. Yeah, I taught Ben Ainsley to sing the national anthem, as I always used to. I used to joke with him when I saw him at reunion things. I taught George Eustace. I taught.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
A number of people that have come through the Truro School line. Yeah. But
and can we mention Bonnie Langford or not?
Oh, that was my mum. My mum taught Bonnie Langford. Yeah.
Yep.
She taught her piano and still is in touch with her.
That's amazing.
Which is lovely. I mean, she's a lovely, real professional, and she always, when she performs at local theatres. My mum's in London, and she's for example, at Richmond Theatre. She lets my mum know, and in touch.
So the title of this video, I've already decided, is Jazz in Cornwall, and. Can people learn jazz? Can people learn music? What's your kind of thoughts on it, Simon?
Definitely. I mean, in fact, I hope I can, because I'm hoping to learn. I'm hoping to get better. No, seriously. Really. I mean, there's a lot of people about better. It's very complimentary how you introduced me, but really,
you're superb. Your class, you really are.
But we did. One of the things I should have mentioned, and I'm thinking as we're going along, of the other jazz things that are going on, I do run some jam sessions. One, which isn't too far from here, is at a place called the Old Library in Bodmin.
Okay. Yeah.
And we run these regular jam sessions where, with the trio that people may have seen in that video with Sam, Keith, and myself, and invite people to come up and join in. And we have a regular jam session once a month, every other month, but 1 month is in Bodmin. Then the following month, it's in St Stephen Community Centre.
Right, yeah,
so again, the idea is people who are of all abilities, and we get some good local players come and join in, and sometimes we get people who've never sung before, and it's open to everybody, and that's the beauty of jazz, is that we all play together, and it's not a matter of saying I've got to go to the jam session, I'm going to rehearse. You turn up and play, and then we see what happens.
Well, I can play about 3 chords on guitar.
Well, you must come along.
I'll come along. We'll do a little feature on that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about your recent rise to fame in the radio world. Source FM has been going for many years, does a wonderful thing for Cornwall, and you've recently been asked to have a show on there. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I had a phone call from one of the organisers of Source FM. That's a guy called Simon Neild, and Simon rang me and said that the current presenters, that's Paddy Horton and Pete Webster, were both leaving the jazz train. They'd started it up, or Paddy had started it up over 10 years ago, and they felt that they'd got to the time in their lives where they wanted to do other things, and it's fine. Yep. And he said basically that they wanted me to do a show every 2 weeks, and I had been asked previously to do something similar about 10 years ago. And I was so keen. Something I've always wanted to do, but at the time wasn't right.
Sure.
And this time, Simon rang me, and I thought, he's not going to ask me a third time. I've got to grab this opportunity. But I did say to him, Simon, as much as I'd love to do it, I can't do every 2 weeks. So Simon immediately said, well, how about once a month? And I'm like, yeah, I think I could do that. And it's really interesting because I have to plan a 2-hour show with tunes, musical tunes, jazz. And I want to try and make it varied. It's a bit like planning a lesson. I get to the point where I'm thinking to myself, I must have slightly more music than the 2 hours, just in case I don't want to run out of music on the show.
If it skips.
Yeah.
I suppose that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. But no. But having said that, the first couple of rehearsals I had, I was using some CDs. And the CDs would occasionally stick or whatever. So now I just use MP3s and do it like that.
Yeah, because they can't ever corrupt, can they?
I don't know. I guess they can.
They can.
Thanks.
You haven't had that yet.
I'm waiting. But no, it's a bit like planning a lesson. I want to try and make it varied. They did say to me, "Oh, you can pre-record the shows." And I thought, actually part of the thrill for me is doing it live.
Yes.
So I've done gigs all over the place, and I don't think there's anything more scary than watching that clock in the studio go down 7, 8, 9
That's
to
right.
the top of the
That's
hour.
right.
Bang.
And fade her up. That's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
and that was actually quite something. But I really love it.
Yeah.
I would love to say I'd love to do more, but I know that I haven't really got the time to do much more. But interesting, and I heard a lovely interview with a jazz musician a few years ago on the radio, and he said that he ran a radio station, or he did a radio show for a time, and it made him listen to music a lot more than he had done. And I thought, yeah, he's right, actually. I've listened to more jazz in the last 2 or 3 months in preparation for my show. It might be old music. I found some CDs in my CD rack that were still in the cellophane covers. I bought them, put them in the rack. I'm going to listen to that. Forgot all about it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm listening to lots more. And this guy who in this interview was saying he compared it to Roger Federer in a tennis match, sitting down halfway through a tennis match, or when they change ends, sitting down at a chair and taking a bite from a banana and a swig of drink. And he said basically he's not tasting that, he's just eating it because he has to. And I think, yeah, that's how I was with listening to music. I'm not enjoying. So he said, it's like now you sit down, it's like having a meal where you've got time to sit and listen. And that's the same with this music. I find myself not thinking, I've just got to listen to that track because I've got to play it in a gig next week and I haven't heard it before. So I listen to the bit, or I listen to the piano solo and I skip through a bit more and a bit more. No, now I listen to the whole track, and I might listen to the whole album. I'm listening to much more music than I have done for a long time. And not because I have to, but because I want to.
Now, I'm going to touch on this for a minute. Now, the world as we live in right now, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of tension in the world. I'm not going to go into all the things that we're tense about, or a lot of people are. But music, I believe, really can help change your mood. You know, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling stressed, and you're not listening to music, if you can just go somewhere, just yourself, and put on your favorite music, it can lift your mood, can't it?
Absolutely. And equally, actually, as I can remember as a kid, listening to sort of quite melancholy music, and it can do the opposite.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You've got to play your favourite music.
Yeah.
You know, don't go playing those depressing
No,
songs.
no. But absolutely. In recent couple of years, I've made quite a few trips up to visit my mum in London, and as part of the journey, I've always have downloaded music on my phone, and the journey seems to go like that. But it's a good time. That, you know, when I was a kid, I was listening to music a lot on records, vinyl, tapes, or whatever. And these days, it's hard to find that time. I was saying earlier about listening, and one of the best times I find is when I'm driving, and I think probably a lot of people do these days.
Absolutely.
Is when you're in the car and it's just you. And that's when I'm really able to listen to lots of music. I'd love to be able to just sit back in a chair and gin and tonic and just listen. But there's always something. It always seems to be something to do when you're there by yourself driving, and it's just absorb it.
Absolutely. Now, look, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'm hoping that we get to do this again, because I'm trying to keep this within our time restraints so we get it on LinkedIn. But just to sum up, how do people get hold of you? I'm really grateful for the CDs you brought in today as well, so people can get your music, find out more about what's the best way.
Well, there's my website, which is simonlatarche.co.uk, and of course the Source FM app, which is available free to download from your app provider, and you can also hear the show on the sourcefm.co.uk, and or if you're in the Falmouth Penryn area, it's 96.1 and on FM. And my show is on Monday night. The Jazz Train is on every Monday night, and my particular show is the second Monday of the month. So my next one is the 13th of February, but there will be a show every week on the Monday, and it's repeated on the Sunday morning, 9 till 11. So if you've missed it on the Monday evening, 8 till 10 p.m, you can hear it from 9 till 11 on a Sunday morning. So yeah, that's how you can get hold of me. si@simonlatarche.co.uk or at Twitter @simonlatarche.
follow this man. And don't forget, you can also book him for weddings and things like that. You know, top level. He's not cheap. He's the top of his game. Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me.
We'll catch up again soon. Well, there you go. Simon Latarche, make sure you connect with this man. And don't forget, if you know anyone doing anything remarkable here in Cornwall, drop me an email, shane@cornwallchannel.co.uk. As always, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Jay Kennett, who's produced this podcast for us today. Until next time, keep it jazz.